If there's one thing I know about me, is that I love my older, white, male, morally gray characters. And Plutarch Heavens Beats no exception. If I sound a little sick, I'm kind of still recovering from earlier, so just ignore that. I want to start off this video by saying this obviously includes spoilers for Mockingjay and just the entire Hunger Games book series, so if you have not read that, close your laptop or turn off your phone whenever you're watching this on and go watch it, because if you haven't seen it, why are you watching this video? Who is Plutarch? Most people walk away from the Hunger Games series not really thinking about his character, walking away not realizing the importance of his character and the importance he has to the rebellion and to the ultimate ending of the Hunger Games. Well, firstly, Plutarch is a capital citizen, born and raised. We learn in the Battle of Summer's Snakes that his family has actually been in power for some time, and so him being in power in the capital is not really a far stretch. And he is the head game maker of the Third Court of Quell, the 75th Hunger Games, and yet he decides to rebel. Join the rebellion, join District 13, yada yada yada. At first, when he is introduced in Catching Fire, it seems that he's an antagonist. Well, I mean, technically he was first shown in the first book when Katniss shoots an arrow at the game makers, but that doesn't count. He's first really shown whenever he sees Katniss at a Capitol party, and it seems like he's kind of a villain. He seems kind of antagonist, but it's kind of weird. But then later, when he joins the rebellion, it seems that he's a friend. But he still does bad things. And so he's still kind of morally gray. Is he good? Is he bad? He does a lot of bad things, but for good reasons. Do the ends justify the means? Does he want to help the rebel cause, or does he really only want to help himself? So what are Plutarch's motivations? Of course he sides with the rebels, but why does he side for the rebels? We know for a fact it's not because of President Coin. It shows that's not where his true allyship lies. I mean, it didn't lie with President Snow, it doesn't lie with President Coin. In fact, when Coin is shot in Mockingjay Part 2, the movie, he is shown to be actually smiling, right? Did he join the rebel cause because he finally woke up to the injustice of the games? At what point did this happen? We don't know. Plutarch Heavensby is a man who likes to keep his cards hidden, okay? It is hard to know his true motives for joining the rebellion and his true desires for what he wants to take away from it. One thing we do know, though, is that he supports democracy. When he flies with Katniss after what goes down with President Coin at the end of Mockingjay, he talks about the government. When Katniss shows doubts about the ideas of democracy, he even says, if our ancestors could do it, then we can too. When they do end the war, he does seem a little bit doubtful that the peace will last, but I mean, he is hopeful. He is not so hungry for power as to start another war. He's not so hungry for power that he would bring up more chaos in order to get more power himself. That brings up another good point. How much power does Plutarch really want? In an interview with David Levithan, Suzanne Collins says, as game maker among game makers, he likes the challenge of the revolution. He likes a challenge. He likes the power. One of my favorite conversations between Plutarch happens near the beginning of Mockingjay whenever he's talking to Katniss. In the conversation, Katniss says, but what would happen if you got on Coin's bad side? My prep team was kidnapped. They can at least hope to one day return to the capital. Gale and I can live in the woods. But you? Where would you two run? Perhaps we're a little more necessary to the war effort than you give us credit for, says Plutarch, unconcerned. Of course you are. The tributes were necessary to the games too. Until they weren't, I say. And then we were very disposable. Right, Plutarch? This is such a good conversation that I do wish that they had kept in the movies, but that's a rant for another day. This conversation shows that Plutarch is confident in his standing with power and his standing with Coin. Now, this is all speculation, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that he had a backup plan for if, Coin kicked the bucket when, what happens at the end of Mockingjay happens. Plutarch has no trouble standing in with power. Plutarch is very important to the rebel cause, even if he doesn't always exemplify the attributes of a rebel. Another thing to know about Plutarch is that he never seeks to gain all the power. But like a game maker, he tends to like to work in the backgrounds instead of the forefronts. This is actually a safer place than working in the front of everyone, than being in the most powerful position. We know this because of what happened to Coin. And Plutarch must know this too. He chose the safe spot where he could have power, but not too much power as he's put in too much danger. He's in this place where he can kind of work as a puppet master, where he can manipulate things for whatever he needs or whatever he thinks that the rebel cause needs. Therefore, he can do a lot of things with little to no repercussions, which is a very dangerous place to be in. Now on to probably the longest part of the video. Plutarch's faults. Plutarch's many faults, if you will. This is what interests me so much about his character. How he can do so many bad things, yet still be a good guy. I think the best way to describe Plutarch is to say that he's a firm believer of the ends justify the means, okay? You can make a lot of things okay if you say to yourself, well, it's okay because the end point makes it okay. We see this firstly in the Hunger Games itself, specifically in his role as a game maker. As we know, Plutarch is the head game maker of the Third Quarter Quell, the 75th Hunger Games, and later we find out that he is also a rebel sympathizer. But does that make all the things that he did as a game maker okay? All the horrors that we see presented in the Court of Quell, he had a major part in, and I think that's something that we often forget. And I think it's something that Katniss doesn't forget, and that's why she holds so much grudge against him. I think part of the reason that Katniss gets so mad at him is because he never seems to feel bad about what he did as a game maker. He doesn't feel bad about what the tributes went through. He really does act like a game maker. In the previous conversation, when Katniss accused Plutarch of treating the tributes as a piece of his games, Plutarch doesn't even try to defend himself. He stays quiet, and I think that's because he knows that Katniss is right, that he really was treating them as just pieces in the game of the rebel cause. The Catching Fire movie even indicates that Plutarch came up with the idea for the Court of Quell, the idea that the Reaping Bull for the 75th Hunger Games would pull from the list of surviving victors. It was his idea to put the victors back into the games. It was his idea to put the people who the Capitol promised would be the only ones safe from the games back into the games. It was his idea to put the people who were so traumatized back into the very place that traumatized them in the first place. And while either way the Hunger Games would have still continued that year, is it okay, the decision that he made to put these people back? Of course, this decision probably is what made it really possible for Katniss and some of the other victors to get out of the games. But is he still to blame for the deaths that this games caused? In Mockingjay, Plutarch is continually shown to encourage Katniss to take on the role of the Mockingjay. While this is not really necessarily bad in itself, I kind of read it as he was taken a little bit too far. I don't know if Katniss had to be the Mockingjay, and I know that she didn't want to be. She was already so traumatized from it, and I don't think that's something that you should really force someone into. And I think he really was pushing her into forcing her into doing it, because he really believed that she was the only one that could do it. Another place that Plutarch is shown to be morally gray is in the 10th chapter of Mockingjay, after Peeta is beaten on live TV after warning District 3 about an upcoming bombing. After all this goes down, Plutarch refers to what happened to Peeta as merely a setback. He says, "Look at all the courage Peeta just displayed," as if his actions were something to be cheered at and smiled at. He sees Peeta's actions without seeing the consequences of his actions. He does not worry about him at all as a person. He's just worried about what he's saying for the sake of the rebel cause. He's treating him like another piece in his rebel games. Although it is not explicitly said, I do think that Plutarch played a role in the bombing of Prim and the Capitol children. I don't think that Vidi and Gale could have done that all by themselves. I would not hold it above Plutarch to be a part in the atrocity that happened that day. I would not hold it above him because he's a firm believer of the ends justify the means. What is killing a field children to the atrocities of a long-run war? I think he could easily justify that to himself. Finally, I believe that Plutarch has feelings of superiority towards the people of the districts. This would be a feeling hard to get rid of after living in the capital your whole life. At the end of Mockingjay, Plutarch complains about the absence of coffee. When he asks if District 12 had a black market, Gale tells him about the Hob. Then Plutarch notes, "There, you see? And look how moral you two are." This is a very belittling statement that treats the scene as some immoral, dirty place full of immoral, dirty people. But Plutarch isn't all bad. That's what makes his character so interesting. He has a lot of redeeming qualities. And one of these redeeming qualities is shown in his first interaction in Catching Fire. In this scene, Plutarch introduces himself to Katniss as the head game maker of the third quarter quell, and shows her his pocket watch. When Katniss looks at it, she sees the shine of the Mockingjay emblem on his pocket watch. Plutarch reveals later on that he did this to give Katniss an edge to the arena and to let her know that he is on her side. And even though she didn't really get this the way that he intended, it shows that Plutarch does care for her, that he doesn't see her as some non-human being, that he really does see her and want to help her. Another one of these redeeming qualities is shown when Katniss finally accepts being the Mockingjay. When she does, Plutarch shows her a sketchbook of drawings Cinna made for her Mockingjay outfit. Plutarch said that Cinna made him promise not to show Katniss the sketchbook until she had accepted being the Mockingjay on her own terms. Plutarch even says that he was very tempted, and even though he wanted to take the easy way out, he stayed loyal to Cinna and kept his word, which honestly kind of shocks me. Later on, when Katniss finds her old prep team locked in a cell under District 13, Plutarch is the one who frees them. He tells the guard to release them under his authority, saying that he will take full responsibility. Seeing how the prep team was obviously distressing, and Plutarch rightfully speaks out that they be freed. Of course, seeing this was probably particularly disturbing because it was Capitol citizens being locked down there. Later on, Katniss makes the connection between the prep team and Plutarch, indicating that Coin's locking up of the prep team could serve as a warning to Plutarch and his assistant Fulvia. Finally, in chapter 26 in Mockingjay, it is briefly mentioned that Plutarch played a role in freeing Effie and keeping her alive after the war ended. He vouched for her even though, as far as we know, he didn't really know her and he might not have a real reason to, other than she was innocent. How much his vouching had to do with her being a capital citizen though, we don't know. So, is Plutarch Heavenspeak good or bad? He's on the side of the good guys, but is he a good guy? I don't know. That's what's so interesting about morally gray characters. We don't really know. One of my favorite scenes of Plutarch doesn't actually have Plutarch in it. This scene is also one that's not in the books. It's actually one of the reasons that I really like the Mockingjay movies. It's a short scene at the end of Mockingjay Part 2, before Katniss flies back to District 12, after the war ended and after she assassinated President Coin. In this scene, Haymitch reads to Katniss a letter from Plutarch. And I think this letter really encapsulates Plutarch's character as a whole. I guess I'll shut up and just show you the video.
Plutarch gave me a letter for you.
I don't wanna.
You never make it easy, do you? Okay, I'll read it for you. Katniss, maybe the country was shocked tonight by your arrow, but once again, I was not. You were exactly who I believed you were. I wish I could give you a proper goodbye, but with both Coin and Snow dead, the fate of the country will be decided tonight, and I can't be seen at your side. Tonight, the 12 district leaders will call for a free election. There's little doubt that Palo will carry it. She's become the voice of reason. I'm sorry so much burden fell on you. I know you'll never escape it. But if I had to put you through it again for this outcome, I would. The war's over. We'll enter that sweet period where everyone agrees not to repeat the recent horrors. Of course, we're fickle, stupid beings with poor memories and a great gift for self-destruction. Although who knows, maybe this time we'll learn.
I'm so sorry so much burden fell on you. I know you'll never escape it. But if I had to put you through it again for this outcome, I would. The ends justify the means. That's really what he believes. He would do all of that again to get the outcome that they got. He would put Katniss through all that trauma again for that outcome. Maybe her life is forever scarred, but in that scarring, they are able to free others from scarring. So does that make it okay? Does that make it worth it? I don't know. I don't think so. But the next thing that Plutarch writes is true. The war is over. No matter how they got there, they were able to end the war. And not only did they end it, but they won the war. They won the war for the rebel cause. Do all the atrocities make it worth it? I don't know. Does it end further atrocities from happening? yeah, it does. Is Plutarch a good person? I don't know. Did he accomplish good things? Yeah, I think so. He's a very complex and fascinating character. So yeah, Plutarch is an extremely interesting character who has always fascinated me. He's one of my favorite characters in the entire Hunger Games franchise just because of how morally gray he is and just the questions behind his character that we don't really ever get a full answer to. I don't really hear many people talking about him, so I just thought I would make a video rambling about it because I can ramble about him. Also, just a little side note, I couldn't really find any place to put this in the video essay, but I think it's interesting. In an interview with Time magazine, Suzanne Collins says that the character that she relates most to is, guess what it is? It's Plutarch Heavensbee. She says that this is because creatively, I mean, she and Plutarch have the same role. Plutarch is the game maker, she is the author. Plutarch creates the games. Suzanne Collins creates the games. I just thought that was interesting. I don't know. Well, let me know what you think about Plutarch. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he morally gray? I don't know. Maybe you can convince me. Convince me one way or the other. But yeah, till next time, I suppose.